You're listening to Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis. Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis is brought to you by...
You know, there are few relationships more solid than the bond between a man and his barber. For years, I've gotten my cut with Gene the Barber. Gene has been cutting my hair for more than 20 years. Call him directly at 240-687-7253 and make an appointment. Gene the Barber, 240-687-7253.
A Squared Home and Office Solutions is the go-to source for home or office network and audiovisual solutions. We can help with smart home integration, wireless networking, media rooms, security systems, and more. We will link technology to your lifestyle seamlessly. Visit homeandofficesolutions.com for more info.
You're listening to Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis. Here's your host, Kurtis Cross.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Conversations with Kurtis. I am your host, Kurtis Cross, and as always, I'm excited to be here with you today. Before we go any further, I'm just going to tell you I'm super excited about today's guest. You will know why once her and I get into the conversation. But in the meantime, what I want you to do is I want you to make sure that you go check out our other podcasts. I want you to check out the Kurtis and Paula Show, a lifestyle, love, marriage, and parenthood podcast. You'll hear all about the day-to-day life of me and Paula. Take It to Yo with Turner and O'Neill, a local and national sports podcast hosted by me along with Coaches Turner and Coach O'Neill. Ramblin' Teachers is a local teacher talk podcast hosted by a few friends of the Crosstalk family. And last but not least, the Midnight Truck Stop and 911 Radio. Both of these podcasts are hosted by Big T and the Blue Knight. You'll hear stories from truckers, 911 calls, law enforcement officers, and a host of other interesting guests. You can connect with me at Kurtis Talks on Instagram and Twitter. And of course, you can follow me on www.kurtistalks.com. Wow. I want to thank my sponsors, Gene the Barber and A Squared Home and Office Solutions. All of these podcasts can be found on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, of course, on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast content. Once again, you're listening to Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis, and I thank you for joining today's conversation. Today, I'd like to welcome to the conversation someone whose story I heard and I had to tell. Let's welcome Sariah Hastings to the conversation. Sariah, how's it going, young lady?
It is going well today. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I think I don't have a good poker face. When you and I first talked, it was a must that I get you on this call. You have a story to tell. We're going to tell that story now. I think you have the most in-depth and most riveting story that I've brought to the table thus far. You are now at the table. Sariah, please tell people a little bit about you. And, you know, oftentimes people say, well, tell me about you. What do you do? I'm not as interested in what you do because that doesn't make you who you are. I want to know, who are you? Who's Sariah?
Well, Sariah Hastings is a woman who is a survivor of human trafficking. I do not call myself a survivor anymore. I call myself an overcomer. I've been out of human trafficking for 10 years now. I was involved with it for almost 20 years. I now am a published author, and I have become a founder of a nonprofit organization called Ashes to Beauty New England.
All right, you mentioned that book. Let's not wait any further. No More Games is the book. Tell me how that's doing for you.
It's going well. Right now, there's been a total, since it's been out, and for being a person who people know as far as a big name for publishing, I've sold roughly about over 5,000 copies.
I mean, come on, Sariah, you're doing something up there. You're doing something. All right. So, but to get to that book, what happened is, I'm a firm believer to get to something, you have to go through something. And to get you to this point here, there's some things you had to go through, Sariah. Let's talk about those things.
Yes. So when I started my life, it was not the normal life that most children enter into. Mm-hmm. I was molested from the age of 2 to the age of 16 by family members, whether it was my close family members, distant friends of the family. But I started where I found out down the road that I was actually paralyzed on my right hand side of my body when I was born. I had multiple seizures in my brain that they told my family that I wouldn't live past the age of 5. And so when I was growing up, I was not the typical girl that had the Coke bottle shape, as I put in my book,
Okay.
the one that you would see on Baywatch or the runway shows. So because of that, my family said that I would never be able to have a relationship, be in a married relationship with a man. And if I wanted a relationship with a man, the only way that would happen is if I was in a pimp and hoe relationship. So
Okay.
basically, I would have to be a prostitute or human trafficked to become one. And so from that point on, I was groomed all my high school years, my my middle school years. I was passed around. People told other people, "Oh, you could sleep with her in the bathroom. You could do whatever you want with her." And so then it got to the point when I turned 18, and that's where my book takes off. At the age of 18, that's when I officially became a prostitute.
You know, that's that's a lot. That's a lot. And but here's what we know. We're going to get into some of that, but before we get there, I feel compelled to say that he held you tight in his grip. He wasn't done with you, and your
Yes,
story was not done. We
yes.
know that he favors us, right?
Mhm.
And I'm not overly religious, but there's something to be said here. Fate and destiny, we can't blame it on that. He's been better to you than you've been to yourself sometimes. Am I right?
Amen. Yes,
He has done that, and he has not forsaken you. He has not forgotten about you.
yes.
But there were some tough times, some tough roads. You and I have had a conversation about that, and tell us what that was like, please.
Well, at the age of 18, when I got into human trafficking, I was beaten, and I was like, I continued to be raped. And then when I turned 19, I was pregnant by one of my pimps. My story is completely different from most survivors, is because I had multiple pimps throughout the years. I lived in 33 different states. And so when I had my oldest son, and being young and naive to wanting to fulfill my desire of being loved and wanted by a man, I chose drugs and a man over my son. And so I walked out on my son's life, and I explained that in my book, that when, if ever one day he wants to understand, because it's very hard for me to ever say that to him. So I write it in my book on how and why I left him. And so at being 21, 22, and walking away from my son and going into a dark place where I was constantly, I was homeless, living on the streets and of uh, shelters, and living under the freeway, and just every day trying to survive a life of knowing if I'm going to live the next day.
Wow. Some people walk through this world and they take a look at you or me or anyone else out there, and you just don't know someone's story. You absolutely don't know someone's story. So, living in 33 different states, being trafficked, and so shall I understand? Please excuse me for being naive. That from one week to the next or one day to the next, you did not know where your head would land.
Correct. There was a time I remember when I had came into a state, and I was in a city and I was trying to find a place. And so this girl told me about this hotel room, and this man said, "You need to do sexual acts," and had a gun held to my head and said, "If you want to have stay in this room with me, you're going to have to do sexual acts."
Right. So we're
And
not talking about, so I don't want people to think it's your average everyday garden variety of, I'm sleeping in my car or I have to go to a shelter. We're talking about something that goes a sub level beyond that. And by the way, I do want to let my audience, my listeners, and my viewers know you and I are not going to discuss where you are right now. That's just not what we're going to do. But suffice it to say, the United States has been your home for, forever.
since
Different
the,
states and
yep, since the day I
33
was
different
born.
places. Yeah, 33 different places. But she is here in the United States. But we don't think it's very important to disclose where she is exactly right now. So we're not talking about your garden variety trafficking. We're not talking about, prostituting and you're enjoying some life full of thousands of dollars and this, that, and the other. We're talking about not knowing where you are from one day to the next. Were there times where you did not even know what state you were in?
Yeah, there was many times. Like I said, I slept under a freeway, and I remember my pimp saying, "Don't move because then the rats will, start eating you. So lay still." And rats would run past me because I had no place to lay my head at, or sleeping on the streets, or having to take a shower in the ocean because I didn't have money to go into somewhere to take a shower.
Right.
So that's why I tell most people when I was out there that I was the most richest homeless person that you would ever meet, because the difference between me and a homeless person is I would stay in a hotel.
Right. So what is that pimp relationship like? Because I would say for the vast majority of people, it's what they see on TV, and TV is not real life always. What is that relationship like?
Well, there's so many different types of relationships. I have two children, and both of them were products of human trafficking from my pimps. I was pregnant by my pimps. But my last one, it was to the point where I don't know which pimp I was pregnant by because I had multiple at the same time. So it all varies. Some pimps, they were kind to me, in meaning that they allow me to have food to
Right.
eat.
And
They
that's
had
the extent of the kindness.
or they would allow me to stay in the hotel room, or make sure that I had a place to stay at. There were some that were nice, but in all honesty, it was I was a piece of meat. I was just property. I was just a goods. And so when I left, I become damaged goods. That's the word that they use. You're damaged goods. You're no good to me. You can't make me money anymore because I left. And so that's how my life was. Pimps is I've come to forgive them, because a lot of my pimps that I've come to find out, they were raised with a mother or father that would beat them, or they would see beating and things like that, so they thought it was normal. So I come to realize, my traffickers, they had issues that they didn't know how to deal with.
Right.
And so for me, I have forgiven them. Now, do I say that you forgive all of them? No. Forgive them, but some may need to be prosecuted for what they've done to women or whatever. However, for the pimps that I dealt with, like I said, there were so many. I've just forgiven them and just said, you know what, you had your own issues in your life that you need to deal with.
So the extent of the niceness is not the extent of niceness that we would expect from the common person. The extent of their niceness went as far as you being able to produce income for them.
Correct. So there was times where I used to wear the BCBG, the Prada, the Gucci. I used to have all those brand names because at the end of the day, I was their product, and
Right.
I need to go out and make money.
Right.
The most that I made in one day was $9,000. So to go out and make money, get your nails done, get your hair done, all that stuff they would do that to make me feel, but then I have to pay that back. So
Right.
I'm paying to be pampered with the money that I then just made,
Right.
and then you telling me I gotta go make some more because I just spent money on myself, on
Right.
the money that I just made.
Right.
So it makes they make it seem like it's not your money, it's their money, and you have to earn it. There
Right.
was many times Pence would give me a number, a quota, and I would not make it, and then I would get in trouble, or if I didn't do what they asked me to do, or whatever. There it's not no there's no grace. There's
Right.
no, oh, you don't feel good. I wrote in my book, I have surgery, and I came to find out that I had multiple cysts, and the pain that I had over the years, I would cry and tell my pimps I was in pain, and they did not care. the next date, next money. They didn't care how much pain I was in.
Wow. So, again, for those of us who are uneducated to that life, so if you're going out making money, earning money with the dates, how much of that money do you see?
Well, once again, it depends on what kind of pimp you have. For me, it depended on who I was with. Um, and sometimes I would see just enough so that I could pay the hotel room and buy a pack of cigarettes, and then there were some pimps that if I did really good, then I would get the drug choice that I was at the time. I was very heavy into crystal meth, and so they would allow me to do that. Some wouldn't allow me to use drugs. So it all depends on what pimp, where I was at, and what state, and what was going on. The money at the end of the day, I saw none. If you talking about pocket worth, holding money in my hands as if I had it, none. Now there are some women that they have it. Their pimps allow them to have money to make them feel like they are making money, like they have something, but it's all of it. It's all manipulation and all a game to them.
So, the drugs and the prostitution, do they pretty commonly go hand in hand?
Oh yes. Oh yes. You have it. So the what people don't understand is you have two lucrative businesses in this country, in the United States. That's drugs and prostitution. You feel the drugs and you feel prostitution. So I've had women who that I've worked with that were nurses that got hooked on the painkillers that then went to Percocets and fentanyl to heroin, and they were prostituting themselves so that they could get the money so that they can fuel their drugs. So the whole purpose of it is because for me, using drugs, I suppressed my pain.
Right.
Walking away from my son, not being connected to my family not wanting me, my family disowning me, me being in a world and being naive, and in every turn having to figure out how to survive in each state. Each state is different. Living in New York is totally different from living in Texas, or going to Tennessee and going to Vegas. There's two different states, so there's so many aspects of trying to survive on the streets, not knowing anybody, and trying not to step on people's toes, and not trying to draw attention to yourself, but at the same time trying to make money. There's so much stuff that goes on.
And this, because you're moving into their territory. You're in Tennessee today. You might be in Kentucky tomorrow, and that's someone else's territory. You're the new girl on the block. How dare you, right?
Correct.
Wow. So, oh man, this is a lot to digest. And we're going to get out of this in a minute because there are some better stories to tell here. And I want folks to hear those as well as I need people to know how to connect with you. And we're going to get to that because you are on a different side of it now, a side where we can talk about overcoming, not just survival. So the desire to be high, the desire to get that fix is so strong that selling your body, doing whatever you need to do to get to that next fix, it's worth it when in that world. Is that correct?
Well, it's worth it because you don't have to deal with the pain. I mean, I tell people, and it's the honest truth. When I moved to a state, one of my pimps made me do a physical check, and so I got a yearly check done. And the woman asked me, when's the last, how many men have you slept with? And I said 3,000 in the last 3 weeks, and 98%, 95, 98% of them were unprotected.
Right.
And so to sit there and think that I've literally, in most common people's lives, I've had more sex than most people will ever have in their life. And to sit there and try to digest that, I need some type of drug. I needed something to get my mind like, okay, my body has just become a piece of meat,
Right.
and I'm only worth this. Like, that's when the drugs come into play for me. It's more to suppress, and when I came to the end of myself, I wanted to commit suicide. So I was getting very heavy into crystal meth. That's all I was using. I was just going out just enough to make enough money to pay for a hotel room and get high. And in the process, I was looking at my body because crystal meth, you lose weight.
Okay.
And so I was losing a lot of weight, but my stomach was still getting big. And I was like, and I was still eating a lot because it suppresses your hunger with crystal meth. There's a lot of things that go with it. And I was still eating a lot. And I was like, what is going on? And because I was trying to commit suicide because I did not want to live, I was done with my life. I was tired. I was tired of being tired, of trying to find love, and no man wanted me, and I pimps didn't want me anymore. It got so out of control with myself,
Mm-hmm.
with drugs and everything, that somebody found me in a hotel room and took me to the hospital. And that's when I found out at the hospital that I was pregnant again. And that's when I said, whoa. And I remember I called one of my pimps, and who I thought it was, and I told him, I'm pregnant. And the words that came out of this man's mouth was the straw that broke the camel's back when he said to me, where's my $1,500?
Wow.
And I said to him, I just told you that I'm pregnant. He goes, I don't care. Don't tell anybody that that's my baby. I want my $1,500.
And that's kind of, is that started you down the road of what did it for you?
That's what did for me. That's when I said, I'm done.
Okay. So we've digested that. Our listeners and our viewers have heard this much. That's not the end of your story though. So we're gonna move beyond that. We're gonna talk about, well, we're gonna go back to church for a minute. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go back to church for a minute. You realize that he got you this far without any help from you, right? Without any help from you.
Yes.
He
Yes.
didn't need your help. He
Right.
saw something that you couldn't see, right?
Correct.
All right, so here we are. And I'm so damn glad that I got to meet you, because this needs to be told, because there are a lot of stories, and they might not be as in-depth as yours, but there are a lot of stories where people think this is it. This is the end. It can't get any worse.
Right.
But you are an overcomer.
Yes.
I am an overcomer of some
Amen.
things in my life that I haven't gotten into on this podcast, but one day it'll be about me.
Amen.
But here's what we do know. We know that you've been through 100% of your worst days,
Yes.
right? And here you are. So
Yes.
let's start with the big one. Let's start with the national piece. Did I see something? Did I see a link? And CNN or something, right? What did I see?
Oh, you're talking about when I spoke on the 700 Club.
I'm sorry, the 700 Club. Yes.
Yes, I was
saw
on
a
the
wonderful piece. So tell our listeners about that.
So I wrote my book, and I was with the director of the program that I was volunteering at. And I said to her, I said, is it okay if I send out this email to see if I can just share my story? And so she said, sure. And I sent an email to 700 Club, and just stating, hey, my name is Sariah Hastings. I wrote a book. I'm a survivor of human trafficking in the United States. And God moved doors, because the woman who called me told me that it went through 19 desks before it finally hit her desk. And she said that she looked me up on, to see my book. And at the time, people had been, liking it on Amazon, and it was already a 4-star with some reviews and stuff. And so she allowed me to do some, ask me some questions. And the next thing you know, they called my pastor, and he said yes. And next thing you know, in December of last year, and that's what's really cool, is that it was during the COVID time, December of last year, I was able to share my story of how I got out.
So you mentioned your pastor, and
Yes.
you found something greater than the need to be on the streets.
Yes.
Something greater than the need to be a prostitute.
Yes.
Tell us about it. You found him, and again, he or did he find you? But he's holding you in the grip. He's got you in the grip. He did not forsake you. And
Right.
how did you find your faith?
So it was interesting. I write this in my book. At one point in my journey in being human trafficked, I somehow my family got a text message from me, or a voicemail, that they heard this conversation, and I never called them. but somehow they heard this whole conversation between me and a date and trying to make money, and they were trying to get me out. And so from that point on, I just realized that there was somebody that was watching over me. And when I came to New England, I went to a pregnancy resource center, and I wanted to abort my child because I didn't want to have my child. Why would a person who's been human trafficked for so long, and I had walked away from already my oldest son, why would I want to have another child if I can't be a mother to my oldest?
Right.
And so I wanted to abort him. And so when I was at the pregnancy resource center, they convinced me not to. And I told them, I said, if it's a boy, I'll keep it. If it's a girl, I'm definitely aborting because I don't want her to get raped or molested or go through the things that I went through.
Right.
So they convinced me to keep him. And I looked at them and I said, now what? I'm homeless and I'm pregnant. And they said, well, that we have this man named Jesus that can help you. And I said, well, I've tried everything else in this world. What's the worst thing that can happen if I try Jesus?
Right.
I've tried everything. And so when they told me about Jesus, I accepted Jesus in my heart. And I could tell you for the last 10 years, I've accomplished more things in the last 10 years of my life than I have ever accomplished in my whole entire life.
All right. All right. We have to make sure that we talk to these folks again. Here's your platform. No More Games. Talk to them about, we're not done yet, but talk to them about No More Games, because you're given little snippets of the book, but this does not mean in any way, shape, or form that people are getting the whole story here. They need to go buy this book. Tell them about the book, please.
So I'm going to read an excerpt of my book, and this is what starts off. It says, I woke up naked on a bed, trying to remember where I was and what just happened to me. Blood dripping from my mouth. I saw men walking around in a fog. Who are they? I looked up and saw a man standing over me with a gun in his pants. Get up now, he said. We decided you're going to be my girl. And I'm just going to stop there. But that's just a tidbit of what I wanted to start that, because I get frustrated when people think that all women who are being human trafficked in the United States come from another country.
Right.
This is I'm a woman this happened to me, and I was born and raised in the United States. And so when I wrote this book, I write this book in a way to, one, you can play it out in your mind as if it was a movie. Okay. Like, this is real live. This is what's going on. But also, two, I make it in a way where parents can educate them for the aspect of protecting their children from getting involved in it. And what are the signs to look for if they are leading in that direction, or if there are men that are coming at them in a certain way. So there's all these kind of aspects of what the book looks like. And then after you go through it, and a lot of people, when they tell me I can't read it, I tell them, you got to get through the rough part. I had to get through it. Right. I had to get through that dirt stuff. You got to get through it, because on the other end, it's so beautiful. And that's why I call my organization Ashes to Beauty, from gutter to beautiful. From
I wasn't ready for that yet. I was ready for that, but hey, it's, you know what? This is Conversations with Kurtis. You were at the table, so talk about it. It's cool. I do want to say though that from ashes to beauty. Again? There you go. To get to something, you got to go through something. And that is exactly what you did. And you're here. We're overcoming this. But the human trafficking part, it doesn't have to look like a boy or girl from another country. That's part of what we're talking about. It doesn't have to look like someone who's downtrodden, who's from, an Asian country or a European country or a South American country. It looks like Sariah Hastings as well.
It's crazy, because when I really look around, every part of United States, all the women look different. Right. No one looks the same. It's not about color. It's not about what your status is. If you're poor, rich, It doesn't matter how you look at it. The end of the day, the way people get involved in human trafficking, how there's becomes prey and predators, the way you get in stuck in it is your insecurities.
Okay.
Bottom line.
Okay.
You're insecure. The predators, which could be women or men, because I've been on both sides. I've been prostituted and I've prostituted people, so I've played both. I know I was involved with them for almost 20 years. So there's not an aspect of the game that I didn't play. But at the end of the day, if you are insecure, a predator knows that. So if he senses it,
they can smell it, right?
They'll pounce on it, and next thing you know, you caught up. And that's why I talk about text messages, and telling people, listen, big thing happened in 2019 in a college where a bunch of girls were getting text messages talking about, hey, you want to pay, your student loans? Are you trying to look for extra money? Now, to a naive person, that sounds great. 18, 19, 20-year-old kids who trying to pay off their $30,000 debt, that sounds great. Right. Couple of people, what happens? You go, and this is how slick they are. How do you go for an interview? You just go dressed up nice. You put on your best makeup. You get everything dressed up. You bring your purse, and that's all, right?
Right.
That's what happens. Then a few people got caught up in it because you don't bring nothing else. You just bring your best.
Right.
And that goes for men and women. And so then at the end of the day, I tell people, you got to pay attention to those type of things. There's so many stuff that goes on that it don't have to be a person like myself who was molested and raped and all that stuff. Or it could be people I've met people that have been raised in good homes, mm-hmm. but they were insecure. At the end of the day, they were insecure themselves.
It has many different looks. It doesn't necessarily have one look to it, right?
Right.
I hear you. What are you doing now, Sariah? Because right now you've overcome, and I think you're being a vehicle to help. So tell me about that.
So I've gone from being the one that is wounded, we'll say, needing an ambulance to bring me to a hospital, to learning what a hospital looks like and how to change, to now being the actual, as most organizations that I work with, they call me the ambulance, to where now I go out onto the streets and I literally pluck them up and say, come, okay, you want help? You want change? I can bring you so that you could do that. The scripture that the Lord has always said is that what he does for one, he could do for another. There's no respecter. I am no different from the next person. I was just being a willing vessel. And that's the key. People have to be willing to change and want a different life.
You know what this life looks like. So you are the perfect vessel to bring folks in and to help them change their lives. Quite often, I think we find that, someone who might be in need of help won't accept that help because the helper doesn't know what it's like. You know what it's like.
Yes.
You know what it's like. So you know how tough it is to get off the streets, to leave that pep, to be scared. We haven't talked about the fear. Mm-hmm. I'm going to guess, if I'm assuming wrong, please correct me. It might say my name somewhere on this show, but hey, I need you to correct me. Call me to task if I'm wrong. Part of your reason for staying, so we look at insecurity, addiction. There's got to be some fear there. The fear of leaving. What happens if I leave? He'll find me. Is that part of it?
Well, yeah, right. And there, he'll find you. Like I work with women, and one of the women said, "We don't tell nobody. He's gonna come kill me." And I go, "Oh no, baby, he ain't gonna come because you're considered damaged because he ain't." But they mentally put that in their minds. If you leave, right. Who's gonna believe you? You're a liar. Correct. That's the biggest thing. And that's why I'm so adamant to speak, because for 20 years, men would tell me, nobody's going to believe you. Who's going to believe you? Who's going to believe that you were in a tub full of ice water?
You're on drugs. You're a prostitute. You don't have the education. So who's going to believe you?
Correct.
Right? Because to society, you're damaged goods. So I'm the only one who sees your value.
Correct.
Right. And you've got to break that, because that's a psychological malaise that we just don't need to be in. But once you're there, and then you couple it with the methamphetamines, the opioids, the whatever it is you're taking, then they've got you here. And once they've got you here, your worth, right? Your worth becomes, I won't even say laying down in a bed, because it wasn't always in a bed, I assume.
No.
Right. How are you feeling about life now? How do you feel about your ability to help now?
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's so much. I have so much fun.
Okay.
I never thought in my life I'd ever say that. I enjoy life. Before, if you had asked me almost 10 years ago, Sariah, how'd you enjoy life? I would have told you I dread it. I don't want to
Okay.
live.
Okay.
But today, I was able to speak to different organizations, and they go, and talk to them about, what my organization do, and they go, how can we partner with you? That would be awesome, because we don't have people to do this, and to sit there and hear people wanting to connect and wanting to help people get off these streets and wanting to figure out ways to clear up off the streets and stuff. It's amazing. It's awesome. And to be known that I am an effective person giving back to society.
Right. Well, we know that the rent we must pay for our time on this earth is service, and you're doing that right now. Sariah, I've got a challenge for you, and I think you're up for the challenge. Right here, right now, someone needs help. There's someone who's listening who might know someone who needs help. There are people listening who don't know some people who need help. However, sometimes it's important to get in touch with somebody who can get in touch with somebody. You've got the floor. What are you saying to someone right now who needs your help? What are you saying to them to get them into your grip or someone's grip so that they can be helped? And they don't think they can be helped now. They're beyond help, but talk to them right now.
So if you are in a domestic violence relationship, or if you're being human trafficked, because that's both, they go hand in hand, and you are wanting to get out, or you are scared to get out, it is very simple. All you do is you can do two things. You can either reach out, if you're able to me at Sariah.info, and I will connect with you. There's a chat line on my website, and I immediately answer it if you come on, and we can chat, and I can connect you no matter what part of the United States you're in. I know a bunch of organizations around the country. If not, then you don't have access to internet, call 211. It's 211, and that is the information center. And you tell them I want to get out, and they will help you, because they did it for me. They helped me get out. They got me into a safe house or in a shelter, and then from there, my life has changed. So if you really want help, there are ways to get help.
All right. And they don't need to sit here and second guess whether or not the help is really there. You right here on this camera, on this screen, on this podcast are telling them help is on the way. It will be there for you.
Yes.
Sariah, give that website again. They need to get to your website.
www.sariah.info.
It's just www.sariah.info. And you see her name on the screen. If you're listening and not watching, SARIAH.info. Is that correct, Sariah?
Yes, yes, sir.
What else do you need these people to know, Sariah? I'm not going to take up too much of your time, but walk with me a little bit further. Talk to these people. What do you want them to know? You've done it.
You know what? I tell people, if you're not able to go out on the streets and get a woman off the streets, or a child or a man off the streets, and you're don't know how to do it, there are organizations that do that. So if you are wanting to make a difference and you want to help, other than trying to stand with a picket sign talking about help the child trafficking or whatever, and stand with a picket sign, but actually want to do something, then reach out to your local cities to find out what organizations are in your cities. Or if you go to a church, your pastors will know the organizations. There's many ways you can connect and help change people's lives.
Well, because we know everybody with a 6-foot picket sign, they might not have the right word for you today. You know, we do this for the optics. We do this for a Bible upside down in front of the wrong church, right?
Right.
We understand those folks who go to Twitter 101 and that's their story. You know, we don't get political here, but we understand, right?
Yes.
We understand. Okay. So, Sariah, look. Your time is important. It's valuable. Look, I'm not the only podcaster. Everybody wants to talk to Sariah. But Sariah, I think we want to talk to you not because I don't have ratings. I don't know how many people are watching this, that, and the other, but your story needs to be told. Sariah,
Amen.
You're like me. I know if one person can escape whatever they're in because they heard or watched this, then what we did here today was worth it.
Amen.
You know, the book is No More Games. You can find it on Amazon. If you are being trafficked, you need to go to www.sariah, that's SARIAH.info. Sariah, the website is Ashes to Beauty. They can Google that. Is that correct?
No, actually, you just go on my website and you will find it. I'm working on getting it to where it's all set up to where they could Google it and everything.
All right. So they'll find you. Sariah, I don't want you to go anywhere. I want you to stay right there. You're going to go in the green room, and I'm going to finish this up in just a minute, and we will chop this up in a minute. So, Sariah, I really want to thank you for being here. They know how to connect with you. Thanks for joining the conversation. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me today. Your story is important to tell. Sariah, I'll see you in just a moment, all right?
All right.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. That will do it for today's episode of Conversations with Kurtis. Be sure to connect with me socially at Kurtis Talks on Instagram and Twitter and www.kurtistalks.com. You can also email me with podcast ideas, and if you'd like to be a guest or know of someone who should join the conversation, just send an email to kurtisandpaula@gmail.com. Don't forget to check out our podcast family, The Kurtis and Paula Show, Take It to Yo with Turner and O'Neill, Ramblin' Teachers, and of course, The Midnight Truck Stop and 911 Radio, hosted by Big Tony and the Blue Knight. You'll find our family of podcasts just about anywhere you get your podcast content. Thank you for joining the conversation today. Feel free to spread the word. And as always, thank you, Khadijah. We will see you next time.
Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis can be heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Music, and just about anywhere podcasts can be found.
You know, there are few relationships more solid than the bond between a man and his barber. For years, I've gotten my cut with Gene the Barber. Gene has been cutting my hair for more than 20 years. Call him directly at 240-687-7253 and make an appointment. Gene the Barber, 240-687-7253.
A Squared Home and Office Solutions is the go-to source for home or office network and audiovisual solutions. We can help with smart home integration, wireless networking, media rooms, security systems, and more. We will link technology to your lifestyle seamlessly. Visit homeandofficesolutions.com for more info.